In the wake of the failed coup in July 2016, Turkey imposed a state of emergency, giving the government sweeping powers. Protests erupted across the country as almost 130,000 public workers were dismissed from their jobs, including doctors, police officers, teachers and civil servants. The state of emergency ended this summer, but Amnesty says 2 years later, many of those dismissed are facing destitution.
Once they are dismissed, they're almost blacklisted. They find it really difficult to find work elsewhere. In the public sector, it's impossible, but even in the private sector, they find it very difficult to be recruited for a position. So these people have been destitute.
The government accused the dismissed workers of being members of proscribed groups allegedly behind the coup plot led by the exiled cleric Fethullah Gulen. He denies any involvement. Under international pressure, Turkey set up an appeals commission. It has received 125,000 applications, but has processed less than a third, of which fewer than 1 in 10 has been successful.
As evidence, they included references to money deposited to a now closed bank, for example, or a subscription to a newspaper, to a particular newspaper, or membership of a particular trade union. All activities that are innocuous and at the time they were undertaken were not illegal.
The state of emergency also saw dozens of journalists and human rights defenders arrested. The killing of the Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul has focused global attention on the targeting of journalists. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has strongly condemned the killing and has demanded justice. But activists accuse Ankara of double standards.
We want the Turkish government, which has unfortunately an abysmal record with the treatment of journalists on its own, as does Saudi Arabia, to step forward, to use this as an opportunity to move forward into the future, out of the past, and to do something to help bring transparency and put an end to this kind of brutal treatment of journalists.
Amnesty's Boyum welcomes Turkey's tough response to Khashoggi's killing.
We would like to see the same rigor in demanding justice for those people, for everyone in Turkey, actually.
Many of those arrested during the state of emergency are still on trial, including dozens of journalists and several Amnesty International activists. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.